Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. Barranquilla Colombia boas are one of my all-time favorite locality boas. Today I'm going to give you guys an update on my small group of animals. I have 3 sub-adult animals and they're all doing really well, developing really nicely. Just an amazing animal to keep, a lot to recommend it, and I'm going to talk about some of the characteristics of these beautiful boas. So a little bit of background. These guys, I have a group of 3, 2 females and a male Barranquilla boas, and they were actually the last locality boa I added to the collection 2 years ago. As much as I would love to just continue growing my collection, there's a few more localities I'd love to have. I just have a limit as far as my bandwidth. So these were the last boa I added to the collection. I have, of course, added holdbacks that were born here, but no new boas coming in. But these Barranquilla boas I got from my buddy Michael Beach up in Oregon, and just I've been blown away with them ever since they arrived. They were just, blew me away from the beginning, but they're just really developing super nicely. These animals have a huge amount of advantages. They have a lot of the pros of the red tails, the true red tails, without the drawbacks that true red tails can sometimes have. And these animals come to us from Barranquilla Colombia, which is located in the northern part on the Caribbean. And since they are north and west of the Andes Mountains, they're classified as boa imperator or boa constrictor imperator. And as you know, the true red tails are boa constrictor constrictor. True red tails are also found in Colombia, but more towards the southern and eastern part of the country, on the eastern side of the Andes Mountains. The Andes Mountains are really what divides the range of the true red tails from the boa imperator or boa constrictor imperator. That being said, these animals are in pretty close proximity in the wild to the true red tail boas. So they have a lot of characteristics of the true red tail boas, as you can see. Just a beautiful animal to look at, very, very colorful. Lots of gorgeous pinks and oranges. Also, looking at the tail, although not as bright red as a true red tail, they have this beautiful rusty red tail. A lot of people see this and they think, well, it's red, it's a red tail. And personally, any boa that has a red tail, to me, I don't care if you want to call it a red tail. A lot of the purists will freak out if you call this a red tail because it's not a boa constrictor constrictor. That being said, these animals are every bit as beautiful as the true red tails. I put them up there with my Surinames and my Peruvians in terms of their desirability. But then they have a lot of advantages over the true red tails that I'll get to in a couple of minutes. But this is my female, or one of my females, and she's now 2 years old. She's probably about 4 feet long, maybe a little bit more. They've definitely grown a little bit faster than my true red tails. They've just been really enjoyable to keep, very super easy captives. I always feed, never have any regurgitation, never any issues health-wise, just doing really, really well. I also love to handle these guys. To me, it's a lot more enjoyable handling these than my true red tails, because the true red tails, they just want to wrap and squeeze, and they can be somewhat, sometimes a little insecure in trying to grab on. Whereas these Barranquilla boas, they hold on, but not too tight, and they're just great animal to handle. They're also super docile, super mellow, super beautiful looking. I just love the colors and patterns on these guys. And as you'll see when I show you my others, they all have a little bit different of a look, but they're all really beautiful in their own way. These animals are still growing. I don't know exactly how big they're going to get. I would speculate they're probably going to get to be like 5 to 7 feet, as do most boas. Michael tells me some of his adults are only in the 4 to 5 foot range. So not a huge boa, but not a dwarf either. But just a great animal. I mentioned they have a lot of the advantages of the true red tails without the drawbacks. As you can see, beautiful animal, beautiful high contrast, very colorful animal. Has the red in the tail, but much more mellow, much more handleable than a true red tail. Much less likely to regurgitate or to have some of the husbandry issues associated with the true red tails. So just a great animal, all together. And I always say that every animal is my favorite, but these guys are really at the top of the list of my favorite of the locality boas. I would put them up there with like the Surinames and the Peruvians and the Argentines in terms of how much I like these animals. So if you can find a Barranquilla boa, definitely recommend, looking into this locality for your own collection. I'm going to shoot some close-ups of these animals, and this female is definitely the most colorful of the three. You can see the beautiful reddish and pinkish and orangish tones she has, and she's actually, the color's been developing over the last 2 years since I've had her, so she probably will continue to develop. I would say that this animal is about the same tone as my Coups Pastels, which have been selectively bred for the orange color. But her pattern and contrast is just, quite a bit nicer than the Coups Pastels. So just a really beautiful animal. And we'll zoom in a bit, show you guys real close up. You can see how calm she is. Some of my boas would be like taking off when I try to film them like this, like my Pearl Island boas and some of my red tails, but you can see she's just chilling and hanging out. Real good qualities for a pet boa, and most Colombians I found have this kind of temperament. This is my other female. So she's maybe not quite as large as the first female, but almost, I'd say, probably around 4 feet. And when I got these animals, I actually didn't see them ahead of time. I didn't see the exact animals, but I was really blown away just by how beautiful they all were, and by the differences in their appearance. So this particular animal, she has just this amazing pattern. You can see that the symmetrical circle back as far as the shape of the saddles, and just super high contrast. Really, really beautiful animal. I would say her colors not quite as orangey as my other female, kind of more of a kind of a rose highlights over kind of more of a buckskin or tan background color with the darker caramel brown saddles. But she just really has this beautiful symmetrical look, and just the contrast on these animals is just quite exquisite. How well the saddles stand out from the lighter background color. You can see the dashes they have in the saddles are just this beautiful white color. It really pops out. Just a very high contrast animal. And I kind of, when I first got these animals, the trio, this was my favorite, I have to admit. But I just keep going back and forth between this one and the other female. But my male, as I'll show you, is really quite nice as well. So I just couldn't be happier with this trio of Barranquilla Colombia boas from Michael Beach of Woodcliff Herps. And he produces these fairly regularly. There's a few other breeders that produce them. I know Vin Russo has them fairly regularly. So luckily these guys are still available. Way back in the day, a lot of the pet store boas kind of look like this before they were crossed with other localities and other morph projects. If you can get a pure Colombian boa, in general their behavior and appearance is going to be similar to these Barranquilla boas. But the Barranquilla boas, I find they just have this beautiful appearance that just kind of a more symmetrical and more consistent pattern than some of the other Colombian pet store boas I've seen. Incidentally, I am working with a line of pure Colombian boas called the Coups Pastel, which I hope to have some babies later this year. And so these guys, the Coups Pastel, do have this orangey red color, which is quite nice. The patterns are nowhere near as consistent as these Barranquilla boas though, so I really just love these Barranquilla boas. Here's a close-up of female number 2. Just a beautiful look. Look how perfect the symmetry of the saddles is. Look at that tail. Just a breathtaking animal. There's some extreme close-ups showing you how beautiful the color and pattern is on this animal. And what a joy to work with she is, just kind of hanging out there, not trying to take off. Wow, look at that saddleback. Those circles between the saddles, yeah. I probably should just shut up and let you guys enjoy looking at the boa. Look at that tail. And then finally, this is my male Barranquilla boa, the same age as the females. So you can see this guy looks a little bit different, kind of more of a tannish yellowish background color. You know, his saddles aren't quite as contrasty as, you know, the females I showed you, but a beautiful animal in his own right. And they just have this kind of calm demeanor to them that makes them a real joy to handle. You can see that reddish tail. Not a true red tail, but in my opinion, just every bit as good as a true red tail, if not better. So, just love these guys, and let's have a quick look, a close-up look at this guy too. And there's the male. You can see he looks quite a bit different than my two females. I think his color's actually been lightening up a bit. He's kind of getting more of a yellowish color. I've seen some adult Colombians that almost have this really pale, ashy gray color, sometimes with a little bit of a yellow. So he might be kind of like that. He's just going to get lighter as he gets bigger. But just really cool animal, cool look to him. But shows you three animals from the same litter can have, you know, quite a bit different looks. And I've seen this a lot with my true red tails, although not so much with some other boas like my Pearl Islands or my Hog Islands. And there's a close-up of his head, and you can see he's just chilling out. Makes it a joy to film. There's a lot of boas I try to do these types of filming with my close-up lens, and it's just an exercise in frustration. But this guy, you can see, is just chilling out, hanging out rather. So, just a great species to work with, the Barranquilla Colombia locality boa. So that's a look at my trio of Barranquilla Colombia boas that I'm growing up. And as far as when I'm going to have these available, you can tell these are still just sub-adults. I would say they probably have at least 2, maybe 3 more years until they'll be ready for breeding. So I'd say the very earliest 2024, more likely 2025. Just want to give these guys time, you know, to grow as they need it. They do grow faster than the true red tails, as you can see. But just a great boa. I will have some Colombian boas this year, hopefully. Fingers crossed on my Coops Pastel boas. So these animals are also beautiful in their own right, and I'll keep you guys posted, you know, if and when my litter drops. But you know, all Colombian boas, as I've said before, are great pets, great species to handle. A lot more. The husbandry is a lot simpler than the true red tails and some of the other locality boas. And they tend to be extremely docile and handleable. Also a nice, manageable size. They don't get too big, but they're big enough to be impressive at typically, you know, in the 6 to 8 foot range or so for as adults. So that's my Barranquilla Colombia boas. I hope you enjoyed looking at them. And you know, please stay tuned, follow the channel for more updates on these and other boas in my collection. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.